So, so at first, what does this sheet say? What I'm going to say is written here also. Okay? So, I teach my kids. Do you have notebook paper with you?
Yes, Ms.Geeta.
Okay. Write with me. Where is the notebook paper? Anybody wants notebook paper? So, I make my students, in my chemistry 1 student, I actually learned it from a student, alright? So you write O, no, so, po, po. Oh no! It's very important that you memorize this part correctly. It's not po, so, po or anything like that. It should be so, po, po. All this looks very clownish. Clone. Oh no, so, po, po, clone. Write it 3 times, 4 times, kids memorize it. Alright? So, -1, -1. Hey, numbers start with, actual meaningful numbers start with 1. Is that right? -2, -2. So you wrote -1 twice, -2 twice, -3. Only once. -1 plus 1. Okay? Skip the first one. 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. So just notice the first one is ending with a hydrogen. The last one is also ending with a hydrogen. So we'll skip those two and get into the middle ones first. We'll get into the naming. The element is nitrogen. This is nitrate. What is the ending now? Not ide, but ate. What element is this? Sulfur. Sulfate. What will the next one be? Carbonate. Carbonate. The next one? Phosphate. The next one? That's chlorine, Cl. Chlorate. Is that easy? Right? So the first and the last one have hydrogen in them. Alright? So this is named very differently. This is ammonium. And the first one is kind of named hydroxide. The hydrogen is named before the oxygen. And it's the only one that ends in an ide. So way back when naming started, they thought hydroxide was a single atom and they named it IDE, but then they later found out it was a polyatomic ion. What does the word polyatom ion mean? Many atoms ion. Polyatomic ion contains more than one atom in it. And why do we write these out and why do we memorize them? A lot of the substances that are around us they all contain polyatomic ions. So that these groups of atoms stay together. When we analyze these substances, we found out that this is what many of the things around us are made of. And so now we have a list of them and we memorize them. Does that make sense? It's what nature has given to us. Okay? And if you notice, most of the polyatomic ions, there are 2 nonmetals that are joined to each other. Nitrogen is on the nonmetal side, Oxygen is also a non-metal. Is that right? And the bond that exists between these atoms is a covalent bond. Okay? All that is written in your note sheet. It's not ionic, it is covalent. It keeps them together. Okay? When they move from during reactions. Now, this is pretty much the basic structure that you have to repeatedly write and memorize. After this, so if you go to that list, it will look as if there is a lot more, but once you have memorized this, you will be able to write all the others very quickly and easily. Okay? So that's nitrate. If it's one oxygen less, the charge is the same. Are you with me? It becomes, the 3 has become what? A 2. This is now nit. What is the ending? It. It is light. It is light, meaning one less. Okay? Now, so let's look at this one. What do you think will be sulfite? Very good. Sulfite will be SO3. The charge remains the same. Okay? Now, let's come to chlorate. What will be chlorite? ClO2 minus 1. That's chlorite.
Oh.
Chlorine, chlorite.
Why don't you do that for...
Phosphite. Is that what you're wondering?
Yeah.
We're not going to learn that. That's not on the list. Yes, it can exist and we are not interested right now. All right? Now, so say you take out, ites are light. Is that right? Say you take out one more oxygen. Have you heard of hypoglycemia?
No.
When sugar drops? Is that right? So this is hypochlorite. It's even lower than the ite. Are we good? Chlorate, chloride. Remember, the ite became hypo. So it's hypochlorite. Right? One oxygen less. Correct? Okay. So we're going to go up and this is chlorate. Correct? We're going to add one oxygen to chlorate. Alright? If we add one oxygen, it becomes the chlorate got an oxygen added. Is that right? So it is perchlorate. Perchlorate. Perchlorate, chlorate, chloride, hypochlorite. Are we good? It's easy. It's doable. Alright? Now, do you see that the atom here is chlorine? Correct? So, if you have this list, can you quickly go through this list and tell me how much we have finished? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is that right? Out of 27, we've already done 12. Correct? Okay. So, are you looking at the halogen group? What are the halogens? What are the halogens? Chlorine, bromine, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine. Is that right? Are they all in the same group? If ClO3 is chlorate, what is BrO3 minus 1? Bromate. Chlorate, bromate. Because chlorine got replaced by bromine. So this is bromine. Suppose I replace bromine by iodine. Suppose I make it IO3 minus 1. Iodine. Do we understand? Suppose I replace chlorine with fluorine here. What is this? Perchlorate, because the oxygen is now 4. Is that right? It is perchlorate. Are we understanding? Even though perchlorate is not on the list. Is that right? If asked, I should be able to do it. So let's look at the list again. We did, are you down here? We did chloride, chlorate, perchlorate. Do you think you can do bromate, iodate, periodate with just this list? Is that right? Are we good? All I had to do was just memorize the first line. Is that right? After that, I can just keep extending. Correct? Okay. Now, after you do all that, let's go into hydrogen compounds. All right? When it's attached to hydrogen. So let's see. Hydrogen has how many valence electrons? 1. Hydrogen can either give or take 1 hydrogen. One electron. It can become 2, which makes it stable, or it can give that 1. So in polyatomic ions, hydrogen is going to be a +1. Say I combine hydrogen with carbonate. Carbonate is a -2, correct? Say a +1 and a -2 combined. What do you think will decrease? What will decrease? It's +1 -2. Will it become -1?
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the two of them combine and it is -1. Are we good? So how do you name this polyatomic ion? This is hydrogen carbonate. All you do is put a hydrogen in front of the carbonate. Is that right? And there is a -1 because the charge drops. Hydrogen is a +1. Are we good? Now, the correct nomenclature is to have it as hydrogen carbonate. Sometimes you will see this as bicarbonate. This is old, the old nomenclature. I will never ever give you bicarbonate, but if you're doing a science fair project, if you're reading textbooks, hydrogen carbonate is sometimes called bicarbonate. If you're doing a project using baking soda, what is baking soda? Sodium bicarbonate. The -1 combines with the Na+1 and becomes neutral. Does that make sense? Do you understand? That's now a compound. Okay? So say I had phosphate. Phosphate is a -3. Say I add 1 hydrogen. What will it become? HPO4 -2. How do you name this compound? Hydrogen phosphate. Hydrogen phosphate. Suppose I add 1 more hydrogen to hydrogen phosphate. What does it become? Very good. 2 hydrogens, PO4. The charge now is -1. Correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Do we understand this?
Yes.
So this is dihydrogen phosphate. Is that correct? Are we good? So Did we cover all the hydrogen sulfates, hydrogen carbonates, hydrogen phosphates that's on this list? Do I really need to memorize them? No. Once I know phosphate or sulfate or carbonate, I should be able to arrive at the others. Is that correct? Now, let's do ones with sulfur. There is one with sulfur. Well, by the way, there were others here. Like, if you know, we said, if you know chlorate, bromate, if you know chlorate, you know bromate or iodate. Is that correct? They're going to be very similar. Similarly, if you know phosphate, are you looking at the periodic table? If you know phosphate, unfortunately, phosphate and nitrate are different from each other. Yes or no? Why can phosphate have 4 oxygens? Why does nitrogen have only 3? Right now is beyond the scope for you students to understand. It has to do with phosphorus having empty d orbitals, about which you will not understand anything right now. Okay? So, anyway, just know that the second row elements, the non-metals, are kind of different. Okay? But then, if you jump from phosphorus to arsenic, is it in the same group? Are phosphorus and arsenic in the same group? If you know phosphate, do you know arsenic? What is arsenic? What is arsenic, guys? SO4 minus 3. Do I really have to memorize arsenic? I only need phosphate. I can write arsenic. Correct? Do we understand? Okay. You have a question, Aspen? Huh? Arsenic. It's on the list. Right here. You'll find it on the list. Okay? See that? Okay. We're going down and I'm going to go to thios. Thio means replacing oxygen with sulfur. Are oxygen and sulfur in the same group? Yes? Is sulfur below oxygen? So we have a whole group of sulfur-containing compounds, but we are only going to learn one polyatomic ion with sulfur. Okay? So let's look at sulfate. This is sulfate. So what is thio? Thio means you are replacing an oxygen with a sulfur. Replace the oxygen with a sulfur. What will the formula be? S2O3 minus 2. Correct? So this is now called what? Thiosulfate. All I have to know is, oh, if it's a thio, oxygen is getting replaced by sulfur. I really don't need to memorize it. Are we good? Are we good? Yeah? Any questions? Yes, Haley. So, there are 4 oxygens, correct? One of the oxygen is being replaced by sulfur. So, how many total sulfurs do you have? Okay? Yes. One at a time. You can have more number of sulfur compounds, but we are only learning one right now. In sulfate, if you replace the oxygen with sulfur, it becomes thiosulfate, and that is the formula. Yeah, thio means sulfur-containing compound. Alright? Thio means sulfur-containing compound. Okay. Class has become talkative. Are you talking about all this?
Yes.
Okay. You want a little break?
Yes.
Is it too much?
Does it higher?
Okay, let's give you 2 minutes break and then I'll come back and teach more.
Wait, Ms.Geeta, can I come with
Yeah. All right, guys. So we are now, we did the tire sulfate, all right? So there are very few that are now left in this sheet that you really have to know. So this is oxide, correct? What does per mean? Natalie, are you with us? Are you okay? Are you? Okay. So oxide, what does per mean? Yes. You add an oxygen. So what will peroxide be? O2 minus 2. That's oxide. That is peroxide. Correct? That makes water. That makes hydrogen peroxide. Correct? Yes or no? You see the difference? Alright. So there are a few exceptions on this list. If you notice, most of the polyatomic ions are between nonmetals. Is that right? Nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, oxygen, everything is from the non-metal side. Is that right?
Yeah.
But there are a few that come with the metals. And we did perchlorate. Is that right? What is perchlorate's formula? Anybody remembers? ClO4 minus 1. Alright? Can somebody tell me what will permanganate be? Alright? What will permanganate be? If you know perchlorate. Manganese is for the metal Yes. Well, these two kind of resemble. So permanganate will be MnO4 minus 1. Okay? Well, we really have to look at oxidation states to understand that. Alright? I'll do a little bit of that, but that's right now you're not required to know that. But I'll just teach you a little bit of it. Alright? Towards the end of this. There are two more that are on this list that you have to know. And remember, chromium is again a metal. Right? It's not a non-metal. So, chromium is very different. You will say O4 phosphate is PO4, but the charge is a -3. Is that right? But chromate doesn't have that. It's a -2. Remember, those were non-metal. This is a metal. So there are some differences that right now I won't go too much into depth, but I'll try to teach. This is chromate. So you're doing two polyatomic ions with metals. The permanganate and the chromate. These are the only two with metals. Now, what do you think dichromate will be? Di means what? Two chromates. Alright? So, Cr2, correct? Oxygen you think is 8, but it will be 7. Why is oxygen 7 and not 8? Because it actually knocks off an oxygen for it to bond together. Alright, two chromates come and bond to each other by taking the oxygen out. So chromate and dichromate, you can arrive at it by just knocking an oxygen, the charge is the same. Natalie? Yeah, chromate and dichromate, kind of you have to write it out and see what it is. It's not like phosphate because the charge is a -2. Yes. So 4 times 2 is 8. Chromium is a 2. Di means 2 chromates. CrO4 plus CrO4. 2 chromiums, you would think it's 8 oxygens, but it actually has to knock off an oxygen for it to come together and bond. Like one chromate will bond to the other's oxygen to get the electrons from it. That's how the bonding happens. Yeah. This is, guys, are we good? Chromate and dichromate. Are we good? Okay. The very last one on this list is acetate. C2 hydrogen 3 O2 minus. It's very special because it contains carbon in it. Carbon containing polyatomic ion. There are actually a wide number of carbon containing polyatomic ions. Alright? The study of carbon containing compounds is actually organic chemistry. Alright? And it's a weed out course in colleges. Alright? Kids will say, I want to do medicine. But in schools like UVA, which is one of the premier institutes in the state of Virginia, if you take organic chemistry, the class is going to be hard. And pretty much after kids come out of organic chemistry, they're like, no, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I'll change of plans. All right? So this one is acetate. It's a -1. If it combines with hydrogen plus 1, it makes what we call is acetic acid. So if you add a hydrogen plus to C2 hydrogen 3 O2 minus, it's acetic acid, or HC2 hydrogen 3 O2, which is nothing but vinegar. What is acetic acid? Vinegar. Salt and vinegar chips. Right? It's vinegar. That's in pickles. Correct? Alright? This is vinegar. Alright? Now, this is actually sour. Alright? Acids. Now this, even though it's written like this, is actually CH3COO minus. 2 carbons, 2 oxygens, 3 hydrogens. Is that right? A COOH functional group is acid in organic chemistry. Is an acid in organic chemistry. So vinegar is an organic acid which tastes sour. Yes. No, the hydrogen plus and the minus will cancel. Correct? Becoming neutral. That's now a compound. Is it making sense? Which one? It's a functional group. Alright? Functional groups are something that you learn in organic chemistry. We perhaps will do 2 or 3 functional groups, one of which is acid later in the year. But everyday life we are surrounded by these chemicals. Do you see them? Alright? I think if you listen to this recording and you actually practice oh no so po, you should be good. You will be able to memorize these. Alright? Are we good? I'm going to stop recording myself at this time. Did I cover